Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. 66 million Chinese will travel overseas this year, a 15% increase over last year, but that number will grow to more than 100 million by 2020, according to the World Tourism Organization. A decade ago, few Chinese ventured beyond the borders, except for shopping excursions to Hong Kong. Today, affluent Chinese have more options and are paying more attention to the quality of their travel experiences. That means higher revenues for hotels, airlines, retailers, and restaurants in the US and Europe, but also major problems for companies not prepared for the massive influx of Chinese tourists. We'll look at these issues, plus our own PT Black will have a thought or two about Chinese travelers' expectations overseas. But first, we'll speak with Bruce Ryde, General Manager of InterContinental Hotels, Hotel Indigo Shanghai on the Bund. Bruce, the number of Chinese traveling overseas is growing rapidly. Is the West prepared for this? And if not, what should they be doing to get ready?
Well, I think absolutely the number of Chinese is growing. And I think the West is not as prepared as it could be. And I think the biggest issue is probably language. And I think that the Chinese traveller appreciates and needs a certain amount of translation and Chinese language in the destination they're travelling to. So when it comes to menus and hotel information and just general conversation, there needs to be some more work done in a lot of Western countries in terms of the Mandarin language in particular.
Are there already companies or programs in place to help these Western companies prepare for the wave of Chinese tourists?
Absolutely, but I think the pace of growth is such that things are going to have to move a little faster.
And how are the Chinese travelers unique in terms of what they're looking for when they travel, or where they want to stay, or what they want to eat?
Well, I think the Chinese are like any other nationality in that they want to see something that gives them a good memory of the country that they're visiting. In a lot of cases, they need to be guided. I'm Australian, and I know that when the Chinese travel to Australia, they want to see quintessential Australian experiences. So if it's in Sydney, they want to see the Opera House, they want to see Sydney Harbour, they want to see the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So I think they definitely have the same aspirations as any traveller.
Do you really see a lot of travel groups tailoring their programs to suit the Chinese visitor and what they want to see and what they're looking for in terms of their travel?
Absolutely. I think mostly there's an involvement from a Chinese travel company or involvement that helps to tailor the itinerary or the supplier that the travel company is working with. So there is a Chinese component to the itinerary generally. So it is worked that way.
What types of changes has your hotel group made to adapt themselves to this massive influx of Chinese visitors?
Well, I think for us, I mean, I'm with Hotel Indigo, which is part of the IHG or InterContinental Hotels group, and that company has a lot of hotels in China. We're probably the biggest international player in China. So Chinese people tend to know our brands. They know Holiday Inn, they know Crowne Plaza, they know InterContinental. So when they're traveling, there's a sense of comfort that we will understand the Chinese market, which we do. And we export a lot of the knowledge that we have operating here in China to the countries that the Chinese are traveling to.
And are you finding that you need to catch up to serve this tide of visitors, or do you find that you're actually ahead of the curve relative to some of your competitors?
Well, I would have to say I think we probably are ahead, mainly because of our scale here in China at the moment and the size of our operations and the work that we've done. We're fairly well advanced in terms of having Chinese translated websites and a lot of information that's tailored for Chinese travellers from a domestic perspective is transferable to our international operations as well.
So, if the China boom is real, who's going to get rich off of it?
Well, I think everybody stands to benefit from the Chinese economic miracle, if you like, and tourism is a big part of that. As Chinese people have more discretionary income, they're travelling, they're seeking new experiences, and they're travelling to countries further and further afield and looking for more interesting experiences. And I think that everybody's going to benefit ultimately because the Chinese market's growing so fast.
You made a good point about a lot of the quality depending on the Chinese originated groups and how they organize the tours and the travel. Have you seen any early leaders in this area, or do you really think that there's an open market here and an opportunity for someone to step in and become a real player?
Well, I think there have been Chinese tour operators operating for a long time overseas. albeit with more restrictions and now less restrictions. So I think that there are leaders in the marketplace, but I think that the whole industry is improving the way it operates and changing its outlook, because the Chinese consumer is more sophisticated and they won't accept just anything anymore. So they are looking for a better quality travel experience, and I think the industry needs to step up to that.
Let's talk about foreign visitors coming to China for the first time. What are some of the most common surprises in general or specifically with your hotel group that visitors often encounter when they come to China?
Well, I think living in Shanghai, I think the most common thing that I hear from Western guests is that first-time travelers to China is that Shanghai is such an incredibly modern city, certainly from appearance's sake, and architecturally, the cosmopolitan lifestyle that Shanghai has. This is often a surprise for Westerners, and I think that's the biggest one that I get.
Now that the Olympics and the Expo have left China, are you seeing a big decline in terms of tourism numbers?
Certainly not. I think that there's been a big raising of awareness. I mean, Expo in particular, and I've been living here since before Expo started, and I think Expo's raised the awareness of Shanghai and a curiosity value about what Shanghai is all about. And certainly the economic scene here is attracting business travelers, and business travelers are followed by leisure travelers who are just curious about what is actually happening in China and how it's being achieved.
What's the one major thing that foreigners don't understand about Chinese travelers?
Well, I think it's the basic differences in culture and background of the Chinese traveller, and I think overseas, or particularly Western countries that are dealing with the Chinese market, need to understand and need to prepare for the Chinese traveller that has not travelled to a Western country before and needs to experience where they're travelling, but they still need to have a certain comfort level that relates to their home environment. And as I said before, I think that comes back down to cuisine. There definitely needs to be, food is always a comfort thing when you're traveling, and I think particularly the Chinese people like to have their own cuisine readily available when they're traveling. But I think if they're eating out in Western restaurants, which they're going to want to try as well, they need to feel comfortable and not feel as though they're going to be embarrassed or lose face when they're doing things within a Western environment. So there needs to be some preparation for that to readily make them feel readily accepted in the environment they're in.
Do you think Western companies are really starting to see the Chinese consumer as integral to their marketing efforts and to their sales efforts, or do you still think that they view them as a small segment outside of their core business?
I think most companies think very seriously about the Chinese traveller, and I think most travel companies, certainly most hotel companies, have got major platforms within their growth strategies with the Chinese market in mind.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. And now, here's PT Black with a thought or two about how to cope with the rising number of Chinese travelers.